If you're looking for new anime to try out or old ones to watch with new episodes, Verve is the place to be. Black Clover, Demon Slayer, the most talked about anime right now, Dr. Stone, and new episodes of Don Machi and the critically acclaimed new arc of One Piece are available on Verve in high definition right now, vrv.co/geekdom. Try the streaming service for free with that link and enjoy these shows as well as classic episodes of all your favorite anime from the past. vrv.co/geekdom. So today I wanted to have a nostalgic discussion. I want to go back 20 years. It's 2019. I want to go back to 1999 and talk about the return of Dragon Ball Z to television, the return of Dragon Ball Z to the world in the English-speaking market. I want to discuss Dragon Ball Z Season 3. And Dragon Ball Z Season 3 was a very important time because this is when everything changed. Prior to Season 3, Dragon Ball Z was dubbed by the Ocean Group and had come out heavily censored, heavily edited, heavily chopped up back in 96, 97. And we actually went 2 years without new DBZ episodes. Those of you who are a little bit older, y'all remember this. We went 2 years with Goku elbowing Raccoon and Vegeta saying, could he be a Super Saiyan? And that was the cliffhanger for 2 years. Then finally, in March of 99, we got our first new Dragon Ball Z tape, VHS tape in those days, which was Ginyu Assault. But when we watched it, things were a little bit different from how they were before. New voice cast, new music, new era. And they would, of course, stay on to do Dragon Ball Z, many of them to this day. Sean Schemmel, Chris Sabat, Sonny Strait, all made their debuts. Linda Young, Stephanie Nadolny, so many new people came in, and these people would stay on to voice Dragon Ball Z forever. I want to go back and discuss what things were like back then and take a trip down memory lane. And joining me on this video is somebody who was around back then, had a website back then, was very much inside of this intertwined, I guess you could say, with this whole story. You know, he was there. We didn't know each other back then, but we both went through something very similar. Please welcome back to Geekdom 101, Ryan from Battle Geek Plus. Yo,
how's it going? We're about to party like it's 1999.
Literally, dude. Yeah, literally. Right? Let's go back. So, no, I want to clarify some things first of all, okay? We got to make this clear because there's a lot of new fans. Okay, Season 3 of Dragon Ball Z begins with the Ginyu Assault episode, which was episode 53 of the old numbers, episode 67 of the complete numbers. The reason why I'm using both numbers is because the Ocean dub heavily censored Dragon Ball Z to where 67 episodes got cut down to 53, and that was the old sort of release. And then Funimation would go back and redub the first two seasons and have the full, 291 episode series uncut, released with the orange bricks. But the orange bricks, as I've said before, are, number one, not very good. They're the worst Dragon Ball Z release you can get because even though they're cheap, the quality is terrible, but also they are wrong. The orange bricks were released in 9 seasons. Dragon Ball Z did not have 9 seasons. They had 6 seasons. In Japan, when Dragon Ball Z aired, there were no seasonal breaks. There were a few episode breaks here and there for preemptions and baseball and things like that, but they never took like months off. It was just DBZ straight through, just like Super. It was straight through, nonstop, no seasonal breaks. When it came to America, it aired 5 days a week on Toonami, and then it took like a year break or 9 months or whatever, and that's how it worked. But there were only 6 seasons. But when they went back to release the Orange Bricks, they retconned it to being 9 seasons, even though there never were 9 seasons at all. That's BS. They just wanted to call them seasons because that's what shows did at the time. They could have called them parts or volumes, but they called them seasons. That's just what they did. But understand there were only 6 seasons. And like I said, this whole thing started with the Ginyu Assault episode and the tape and the DVD, which came out later. So by this time, Ryan, when season 3 began, I had already watched the first 2 seasons straight through.
Right.
I was watching it in Spanish, and I had already begun collecting Japanese fan subs, VHS fan subs. I already kind of knew a lot. I was reading the websites, yours, of course, being one of them, Ginga Giri Giri, which back then you were known as, Castor Troy. You still kind of known as that, but
Yeah, actually, back in 1999, I still had Vegeta Insane. I started Ginga Girigiri a year later. So
Oh, it was a year later. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
I'm off by a year.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, but you were still Castor Troy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Very well known at that time. Still are, but I mean, that was like the website era. Now we're kind of in the YouTube, Reddit era, and Twitter era. That's where everybody gets their news. But, so I want to talk about season 3. Oh, actually, before that. So, what are your memories of that time period between 97 and 99 when we had no new episodes? What were you... Like, were you actively getting fan subs then? Were you watching it in different languages? Did you have the Nippon Golden Network episodes? You know, let's talk about it, brother. Go for it.
Right. Okay. So, 1999. Oh well. So I watched Dragon Ball Z when it was in syndication in '97, but I really couldn't get into it until it was on Cartoon Network in '98. So I watched.
Right.
Yeah. So I watched the first 53 episodes. And then, so this is in 98 when it was first airing on Cartoon Network. And so, like, me and my friends were saying, hey, maybe they're going to continue after this point. But obviously they didn't, because after Goku battles, Jeice and Birder, they go back to Raditz.
We're back to Raditz, sorry.
Yeah,
over and over
Yeah.
again.
And so then we have to go through that a couple of times until... I think early spring of 99 is when we get this email. If you sign up for Funimation's website, you were able to join their mailing list. And then, okay, hold on. Let me grab that email because I definitely...
You still have that email?
Well, I have a document with the email in it. Hold on. Let me grab that real quick and read it verbatim. Okay.
All right. Just if it's too long, forget it.
No, it's really, really short. It's like super short, but it's a... It's definitely very interesting. Okay.
No, I didn't even know about this email. I found out that they were doing season 3 when Planet Namek, there's a website from the past, Planet Namek announced it, and I remember, we'll talk about it here in a second, but I remember being extremely excited because we were sitting there for 2 years waiting for new episodes, and what I did was I took the initiative and I went ahead and started collecting fan subs because I had to see more of Dragon Ball Z. That's how I got into the Japanese version, and it became my de facto version to watch. But it's interesting because I never had the Ginyu episodes.
Right.
I actually never had fan subs of those. They weren't that easy to find. I had the Cell games, I had Trunks coming in, I had some of the movies, some Majin Buu stuff, but I never had those Ginyu episodes. So when this first came out dubbed, it was my first time ever seeing these episodes ever in my entire life.
Right, yeah. So here's the email. So it was sent to us over 20 years ago, February 2nd, 1999. Subject, new Dragon Ball Z episodes. You asked for it, you demanded it, and now you got it. New Dragon Ball Z episodes are currently being made by Funimation Productions. The episodes will be available this summer on video and are planned to air on Cartoon Network this fall. The series will encompass all of Goku's awesome battle with the powerful Frieza. So keep checking the Funimation website at Funimation.net for all the latest details.
And then Planet Namek reported on it, and history was made.
Yep.
I believe the new cast had come in March. So we got to talk about this. So what happened was, and I discussed a lot of this over in my History of Dragon Ball Z on Toonami video. When Dragon Ball Z aired on Toonami in 98, it got unbelievable ratings, and Cartoon Network were the ones who were like, yo, we need new episodes. So what happened was Gen Fukunaga and Funimation, and Gen recently retired, so that's kind of an interesting timing that we're doing this, 20 years.
Yeah, wow.
Fukunaga recently, he's hanging it up. So what happened was they took the Ocean dub was the original dub house in Vancouver. That's when you had Calamus and McNeil and Brian Drummond, Pauline Newstone. Barry Watson did not want to fly. Producer Barry Watson did not want to fly from here to Vancouver, from Texas to Vancouver, like every week. So instead, they brought it in-house to Funimation. They got rid of Shuki Levy. They got rid of Pioneer. They got rid of Saban, and they did the whole thing themselves. Funimation put out the DVDs themselves, the VHSs themselves, and they dubbed it themselves. And what they did was they brought it in-house to save money. They hired new actors, and they hired a new composer. The new composer would end up being Bruce Faulconer, which everybody seems to love from that era. He has a lot of nostalgia with a lot of people. And of course, Bruce would hire Scott Morgan, Mike Smith, and Julius DeBosch, the real masterminds behind that music. And they had these classic songs that people just love. People love the Faulconer score, whether or not you like it. They love it. And then that's when we first got Sean Schemmel, Chris Sabat, Stephanie Nadolny, the whole clique that I just mentioned, Tiffany Vollmer as Bulma, they came in to replace the Ocean dub. Now, when you first got a hold of these tapes, because I remember vividly getting this tape in high school,
right,
bringing it home and just being so excited because the tape came out, the Ginyu Assault tape came out, in April was it, or was it March?
I think it was the end of April, early May.
Okay, and I remember it was before it actually aired on Toonami, and I remember bringing this tape home, and I remember being so excited because, okay, finally, we've got new Dragon Ball Z. But I remember the voices were weirdly different. What was your initial reaction to these new voices?
All right, so I didn't get the tapes as soon as they came out because I had just lost my job at the library. I was earning minimum wage at the time, so I was just getting allowance from my parents,
which was like $4 an hour back then.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like
so I didn't have a credit card back then to order it from the Funimation website, and also my Suncoast did not have the tape, so I had to go to the I had to go to the internet and on my 33K modem, and I had to and there actually wasn't any movie clips of season 3 back then because bandwidth issues and everyone was on dial-up. So I downloaded sounds from Vegito X's website, and when I heard this shit, man, it sounded like a completely different show. I was like, so does okay? How come? Okay, so how come Goku sounds like He-Man, and how come there's porno music in the background?
That was your first reaction. Yeah, I didn't... It was just funny because Sean sounded like Peter, but not exactly. But also his acting during those first few episodes was just, let's just say, less than stellar. It definitely... This is not the same Sean Schemmel that is doing the stuff now, obviously, right? But I just remember they tried to voice match the Ocean dub, including Sabat. He did his Brian Drummond impression. But later on, if you watch the Orange Bricks version, he did go back and redub it. So the only way to hear the original Sabat Vegeta is if you have the tapes or the DVDs from that era.
Right.
The Orange Bricks don't have it. Funimation.com does not have it. Also, little known fact, the Faulconer score is actually different on the TV version of DBZ than on the Blu-rays and on the Orange Bricks. There are not exactly different, but there are slight differences in music between the two versions. I don't exactly have a record of every single one, but I know Black and Fist was working on this years ago, and I don't know if he ever got it, but it was different. Now, so you're saying you were not a fan of the Faulconer score, because I actually liked the Faulconer score for this arc. I thought it was pretty decent. And I still like the Levy score as much, I think, because it sounded more epic. But there were some good tunes back then. Dun, 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 dun. There was a few good ones here and there. I liked. I didn't hate it,
Well, I do confess, when I think about the Namek arc, I usually hear Faulconer's music in my head because that's what I'm used to. I mean, back in 1999,
that's all we had, man.
Yeah, that's all we had. And I didn't buy the Namek fan subs. I bought the Majin Vegeta fan subs at the time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to tell people. We didn't. Those were very hard to find. I got the Frieza saga on fan sub.
Yeah.
After the Ginyu episodes were already out. So but I didn't have the Ginyu fight at all fan sub. It was years later when I got those.
Yeah, I mean, I never got the Ginyu fan subs. I just got the DVDs as they were coming out and watched them in Japanese that way.
Right? Well, and that's the thing is, we were trying to get all the episodes. And one thing I got to make clear, and I've said this before, is it's not a sub versus dub thing. The reason as to why most of us got into the Japanese version was not because we hated the dub. It was because we couldn't get no new episodes.
Exactly.
Just imagine if you're watching this show, right? It's your favorite cartoon ever. And that's what it was back then. It was I don't want to hear, it's an anime. It was a cartoon back then. We were kids. We didn't know any better. We knew what anime was, but it was called Japanimation. Remember that?
Right.
So we wanted to see what the hell happened with Goku and Frieza. And other fights, stuff like other future story arcs. And so we had to go with the Japanese fan subs because they didn't put it out for 2 years, and we were very impatient back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, and also, let's see, do you also, remember the feedback on websites? I remember, Greg Werner from the Ultimate Dragon Ball Z information site, which is long gone by now, he said...
I remember the website.
Yeah, okay, Like he said, when he watched the Ginyu Assault tape, it was so bad he tossed it into the basement to never be seen again.
Wow.
And I remember Chris Saros from Dragon Ball Z Uncensored was saying, yeah, this is a black day for Dragon Ball Z, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be no season 4 because it's so terrible.
Boy, was he wrong about that.
Oh,
See, what he did, brother, is that he underestimated the power of Dragon Ball Z. Because Dragon Ball Z, no matter if it's dub, sub, whatever, people love that show. I don't care what version you like, they love that show. And even if it gets butchered, because I don't think people remember, the Ocean dub, even though the voices were great, were so butchered and so censored that it wasn't even the same show.
Right.
And one thing that struck me is when you first pop in that Ginyu Assault tape, you see Raccoon and Gohan, and there's blood everywhere. And I'm like, wait a second. There wasn't blood in the episode that I just got done seeing. Why is there blood now? And that's when I quickly realized that the Ocean dub was so censored, they actually erased the blood from a lot of the fights.
Right,
they instead covered it with like black lines, like spit. And being a kid from the 90s, we already experienced this with Mortal Kombat on Super Nintendo. We already experienced this crap censorship of blood. And when you were a kid in the 90s, man, you wanted blood. That was like
blood.
The cool thing. We used to tape trade stuff like Faces of Death and horror movies. You know what I'm talking about, those days.
Yeah, I don't know Faces of Death, though.
Dude, if you had like a pirated copy of like one of these like Japanese horror movies or whatever, you were like the king of freaking high school, dude. Like
I know, dude.
You know, I remember when I first got my copy of Japanese Power Ranger Super Sentai, I downloaded it with very slow internet like you did. People in school were going nuts because we had never seen this before. This is like mind-blowing to us. Nowadays, we have Crunchyroll, Verve, YouTube, all these different streaming websites, you know, Shout Factory. You can watch Dragon Ball on Funimation, any episode you want, like that. Back then, it wasn't like that.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we had to hustle.
Yeah, like, you kids have it easy nowadays.
Yeah, we all do. Now, so we talked about that first kind of tape, and it was less censored. But what was funny is because of the Ocean dub's heavy censorship, the first Ginyu Assault episode is actually longer than the traditional 21, 22-minute episode because they had all that extra footage, right?
Right.
They stretched it out, and I believe the first episode was actually like 28 minutes or something like that. I don't remember actually counting it, but there was like extra footage there from the previous episode that Ocean had never used. It just stuck in there.
Oh, yeah. From what I remember, like the tape version, it had everything from the previous episode, but then when they actually brought it onto Cartoon Network in the fall of '99, they actually had to cut that episode again. So they so like they had to make it. So they had to make that one a lot shorter than it was.
And that's another thing, too, is that if you watched it on Cartoon Network, the first episode wasn't even the entire thing. Plus, later on, the episode where Krillin got stabbed by Frieza, they cut the majority of that episode out of the censored releases. So there was still a lot of censorship even back then. And it wasn't until the Android saga when we had a complete Android and Cell saga, we had a complete arc with no cutting.
Right.
That was the first time.
Exactly.
Now, of course, if you're a newer fan and you watch the Orange Bricks, you wouldn't know any of this. This is when it first aired because they fixed all that later on, right? That wasn't an issue.
Oh, yeah.
But man, what a crazy time. I just remember they would come out with these tapes. It was Ginyu Assault, and then what was the second one called?
It was called
Collision Course?
Oh, no. It was called Captain Ginyu Double Cross, and actually
Double Cross. That's right.
Actually, that was the first tape I bought because see, back in '99, after my high school graduation, I had a whole bunch of money. I didn't have a job, and so
I was actually still in high school.
Right.
I was a freshman because you're about 4 years older than I am.
Yeah. Okay. So I bought So I had to choose between either Assault or Double Cross from Suncoast, and so I bought Double Cross first, and then my friends were with me at the time. So So my first exposure seeing a full season 3 episode. So like the first episode of Captain Ginyu Double Cross was actually drawn by the worst Dragon Ball Z animator, who we call the Triangle Guy.
The Triangle Guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like, watching that with the Faulconer music and the bad voice acting, I was like...
You were like, what happened to this show?
I was like, what the fuck happened to this show? But my friends didn't really care since they just wanted to see new episodes. They didn't...
Well, so did... We all didn't care, bro. Like, at the end of the day, let me see the rest of this shit, you know? We knew it was Japanese and it had already aired, so give it to us.
Yeah. Yeah, but at the time, I was a Dragon Ball Z webmaster. I was already in on the Japanese version. I was hardcore about it. So I was the only one cringing out of me and my friends. Well, they were like, "This is so cool, more Dragon Ball Z."
That's how it was, though. I mean, it was, dude. We were obsessed with this show. We were obsessed, and it's just funny because yes, there was an extreme amount of backlash at the time for this new dub. People hated it, but at least they were happy it was less censored.
Yeah.
And again, it just makes me laugh because here we are 20 years later, and you've got these fans that grew up with that dub who are now criticizing and dissecting Dragon Ball Super's dub, which was nowhere near as Mickey Mouse as that one.
Oh, yeah.
Nowhere
definitely.
near as many dub changes. Nowhere near as many problems. And they're sitting here nitpicking it because why? They've watched the Japanese version first. So
exactly.
Back then, as we were watching fan subs, we would compare them to the English dub, and they would screw up everything. I just remember how bad, the Lord Slug movie was dubbed compared to the Japanese. I remember the Cooler movie. It was a little bit better, but it was still had problems. The Bardock special script was atrocious. I'm telling everybody, man, if you've never seen Bardock special in Japanese, I hate when people say shit like, "Oh, you're a weeb." No, this is not a weeb thing, bro.
Right.
The script is ass, and that's not my opinion. That's a fact. The fact that Sonny Strait, the voice of Bardock, straight up said it was trash. Dude, people who worked on this shit, who should be defending it, are like, "No, it was horrible. I want to do it over again." The script was just not very good because the people back then didn't know what they were doing, and now we have better people in charge, but they still make mistakes.
Right.
That there's a lot of really weird lines in the super dub, but it's nowhere near as bad. But again, it's just funny how history repeats itself because now we're comparing everything to the Japanese again, and people like you, me, and other older fans are like, "Yeah, it ain't the same," but guess what? You kids weren't around back then to experience the real censorship, the real script changes. Dude, Dragon Ball Z Episode 1 Funimation dub has over 40 script changes. Super Jaiyan did a whole video on it that got taken down years ago.
Right.
Episode 2 had over 30. It's literally like a disease. But again, bro, it was Dragon Ball Z. It was new. Now, let's talk about Toonami. Right. So, they had this promo called The Second Coming.
Yeah, I remember that.
It ended with, the voiceover from the Ocean dub. Is Goku really a Super Saiyan? Then the screen turns red, and it's like The Second Coming. Dun, 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 dun. And they're showing all this footage of Goku fighting Captain Ginyu and the Ginyu Force and Frieza. And we're like, oh! We were like, finally, and they advertised it all summer, and then finally, I believe, was it September 4th?
Yeah, I remember. It was very early September '99. I mean, I was coming home from college. Even though I already had the Ginyu Assault tape by then, and even though I still
let me look to make sure. Okay, September 13th.
Oh, okay, yeah,
September 13th was Ginyu Assault.
Yeah,
yep.
So I already had the tapes, but I kind of wanted to be there to see it on Cartoon Network.
Well, here's the thing, though. We had the tapes, but not all the Frieza tapes have been out by then.
Right.
So you had to see the end of the Frieza saga on Cartoon Network.
Yeah. So the thing was too, when I watched that first episode on Cartoon Network, like I mentioned before, it was actually cut, so it was definitely a very different experience than watching the tapes.
Yeah, it was so weird. DBZ fans nowadays are never going to understand this because it was such a weird time. And then we had the whole season running until December, and I remember we were waiting for Goku to transform, and it just kept going on and on and on, including those painful episodes where Goku's got his hands up for the entire episode doing the Genkidama, and we're like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Now, during that time, I had seen, because one of the kids in my high school had the Frieza saga, so I had already seen Goku transform in Japanese, but I didn't know when it actually happened. I didn't memorize episode numbers back then until later. And I remember seeing it in the dub was cool, but I just remember it not being the same as in the Japanese because the score was just more powerful, and so was the script. But either way, it didn't matter, bro. That's what we wanted to see. We were waiting for this, bro. We waited 2.5 years for this, dude.
Yeah, because I remember when I first saw the Goku turning Super Saiyan clip, I downloaded like a really, really bad real media file of it, from what I remember.
Oh, RM files.
Yeah, an RM file. So I remember when I saw it on Cartoon Network, I was like, you know what? It wasn't too bad because, the Faulconer music actually sounded kind of good. While
that's what I'm saying. It wasn't. A lot of the dub fans say it's the best music ever, and the sub fans say it's the worst. And I'm somewhere in the middle where I like the Kikuchi score way more, but I don't hate the Faulconer score. There are some jingles of it that I don't like, but there's a lot of good music in there. You know, there really is.
Well, I mean, the Faulconer score has always been like a guilty pleasure for me because, I mean, I know it's kind of like it's so bad it's good. So I'm like, you know what? Well, I have my Japanese version anyways. So just let the
I think the problem, and I talked to Scott Morgan about this. I talked to the guy who made this music about this. The issue is that, number one, they didn't have enough time, and number two, they weren't paid as well, and number three, and this is something dub fans have to remember, and sub fans, is that they had to put music in every single second of every scene. That was a Funimation call, not a Bruce Faulconer call.
Right.
And even Bruce himself would have preferred it if they had scenes of silence, which the Japanese version did have, because you can't have music playing over and over again. So you've got characters, you know, looking at each other, wah, 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 wah,
exactly.
wah, 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 and it just got annoying. Whereas if they had just been silent and only played the good Faulconer themes, I think it would have been more effective. And I think a lot of dub fans who even I talked to a guy who loves Faulconer, even he agrees, like, yeah, they should have probably toned it down.
Yeah, because like the music
let's be real here.
Yeah, the music just keeps droning on every single scene.
But it's weird because if you've ever watched it like dub with the Japanese music, like on the Orange Bricks, it sounds even weirder. For some reason, the Faulconer score fits with the old dub
I
better
know, exactly.
than the Kikuchi score. It's very weird. Yeah, it's like I've tried it and it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because of the mono stereo differences, but also I found out from Raleigh Pickens recently that the equipment they had back then was not very good either. The Funimation Studios back then was just not, the equipment was just bad.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
So here's one example where I think the Kikuchi score sounds worse with this scene. Okay, there's a scene. Do you remember the scene when Frieza impales Krillin with his horn, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the dub, he's all going, "Ride 'em, cowboy!" Yeehaw! And then that
was a Barry Watson line,
right?
100%.
Like if you hear that with the it actually kind of fits with the Faulconer score, but if you hear it with the Kikuchi score on the Orange Bricks, it just sounds really fucked up.
Yeah, no, it's very strange, dude. It doesn't really sound right. Like, also, I feel like the audio mixing was not very good either. I talked to Raleigh about that too. Like, the voices sound louder than the music if you watch it like that, but if you watch it with the Faulconer score, it sounds pretty even. But if you watch it in Japanese with the Faulconer score, I feel like that sounds fine. Like, that's the right way to see it. Like, that's the original intended version of Dragon Ball Z. But I think with the old dub, now Kai is fine, because by the time they went back to Kai, they had better equipment, better sound mixing and things like that. But yeah, it was just really weird for us. But either way, it was a really exciting time to be a Dragon Ball Z fan because your website popped off, Planet Namek popped off.
Yeah.
You know, we were going around like looking at these sites, going on the message boards, waiting for the new tapes. Oh, we got Garlic Jr., we got Android Saga coming soon, and we were on a roller coaster ride now because Dragon Ball Z was here to stay. Broke ratings records, new arcs, we had new tapes coming out, and even though we had to wait the seasonal breaks for the Android Saga, and we had the Garlic Jr. Saga, which was overhyped like crazy for Toonami Rising Sun. Even though we had to wait, there was always news coming out, like, oh, we got the Burger King tape, the Trunks stuff.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
they were putting stuff out every few weeks, and we were just gobbling it up because we had never seen these before. And then later on, and it's crazy because I was collecting fan subs and dub tapes at the same time.
Right.
I at one time had the entire series in like 3 different languages. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, actually,
like it was crazy.
Yeah. Were you actually recording the Cartoon Network episodes too?
Yes, I was. I had VHS tapes filled with them, and the Telemundo Spanish dub, and the fan subs, dude. I had tapes, so I had like DBZ 1 through like 67 Ocean, and then I had like, you know, the Frieza Saga in Japanese and in English, the Ginyu Saga just in English. I had the Spanish dub for all that stuff later on. Then I had like Japanese Android. I download, and then don't forget the Nippon Golden Network episodes.
NGN. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, they actually aired DBZ subtitled and Dragon Ball in Hawaii under the Nippon Golden Network, and they wound up on the internet. They had these big, giant yellow subtitles, very ugly, but it was back then, dude. That was what we had. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It didn't matter because it's the only way to watch it. We weren't even complaining about it. I didn't complain about the quality. I didn't care.
Right. Yeah, because I remember. I mean, I was so hardcore about recording these episodes because when I just wanted to record them, I wanted them for AMVs, and I also wanted them for movie clips back then. Like way before YouTube existed, like you had to put movie clips on your website. And so I remember the week after Goku went Super Saiyan on Cartoon Network, that's when I first moved out of my parents' house. So I would have to go back. Well, see, like my parents had a programmable VCR, and the place I was renting a room at, they didn't have a programmable VCR. So I'd have to go back to my parents' house to record Dragon Ball Z, and then after that bring it back to the room I was renting so I can capture clips off for my website.
It's crazy, dude.
I know.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember doing AMVs in high school as well with actual tapes. I did one to DMX's Rough Riders anthem,
really?
which was the biggest song of '98, and I used it was crazy because it would jump from good quality Cartoon Network clips to bad quality fan subs. It was such a mess. You can't even get away with those kind of AMVs anymore, but that's all we had at that time, bro. If you go to YouTube and type in the Intergalactic Planetary AMV, that's one of the oldest AMVs, 20-year-old AMV, and it's just so awesome, but the quality on it's bad because the dude actually uses fan subs as a source, but that's all we had.
I know, man. It's nuts.
We couldn't get these high-quality tapes from Japan, bro. Nobody thought about that. By the time we got them, they were like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th generation.
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah, because from what I heard, from what I heard, most of these fan subs were either like the first recording or the second recording.
That's right. Yeah, most of them were from 1990.
Yeah.
And it was already 99. It was 9 years later. Which wasn't going to look as good. So, anyways, do you have any other thoughts about season 3 memories? Anything that comes to your mind?
Season 3 memories. I'm definitely going to say it was a very, very interesting time for Dragon Ball Z. And maybe it might have been the most important.
It was an exciting time, for sure.
Yeah, it was one of the most exciting, and I think it was one of the most important times too, because we got new Dragon Ball Z after seeing after seeing seasons 1 and 2 over and over again, and
it really became this cast. Shemel, Sabbath, these guys became like the voices of the English dub world.
Right.
Most of the fandom sees them as the voices, even though. No disrespect to Brian Drummond and Calamus. The older fans remember them, McNeil and Corlett and those guys. But these guys became like the voices because they did the rest of the series. And GT and Dragon Ball and the movies, it was them.
Yeah, so without season 3, we wouldn't have we wouldn't have Dragon Ball today, basically.
Yeah, well, it had to have been a big success, but remember, we wouldn't have season 3 if it wasn't for the Ocean dub blowing up,
exactly.
And we wouldn't have that if it wasn't for Dragon Ball Z being good.
Right.
Point blank, DBZ is good. That's it. I don't care what version you watch, it's good. Point blank. No, even sub fans have to accept it. It's good, even dubbed. It's better to have dubbed DBZ than not have any DBZ at all. Right.
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, 2 decades later, we can look. We can look at season 3 as just one gigantic meme, basically. It
is, and they didn't know what they were doing either. So I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but they really had no idea.
Yeah, we all remember Chris Abbott's "Yes, I can win, I can do this, yes."
Don't forget Sean Schemmel's. Do you want to dance or fight?
You want to dance or fight? Or Krillin's in the house.
Oh God, that classic moments.
Oh my God!
I'm not gonna let you get away with this. It was something else, man.
Oh, but so many hilarious one-liners, "Whatever turns you on, big guy."
Oh God, the best line ever from season 3. One of the best dub lines ever. One of my favorites, when Frieza rips off Nail's hand. Here, you can use it as a back scratcher. That was one of the best lines ever, dude. There was some good stuff back then. Not a lot, but there was some.
Oh, yeah.
That was not in the Japanese version, even though I wish it was.
Oh yeah. Good time.
Yeah, Linda Young, man, Linda Chambers. It was very happy to meet her. Such a sweetheart of a lady. She's
really nice.
she's super nice, and her Frieza might not be the accurate one. I think Chris Ayers is the definitive Frieza, but her Frieza is still really iconic. And the only reason she even got hired is because she had to sound like Pauline Newstone, and that was a bad dubbing call, if you ask me, from the Ocean dub group. But nonetheless, you know, she still did a really good job, and she deserves to be respected, I think. And she's a great Baba as well. I mean, to me, Genkai is her best. Oh, yeah,
I love Genkai from Yu Yu Hakusho.
That's her best role ever, in my opinion. Just like Cynthia Kranz. She might be Chi-Chi, but Yu Yu Hakusho's really when she's at her best, in my opinion. Botan, yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it. Any final thoughts, brother?
Let me think. Well, I look at season 3 with very fond memories.
We were all kids, man. Yeah. We were all kids back then.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch it again. I still have the old DVDs. So.
I bought the Ginyu Assault DVD last year because I wanted to relive those times.
Yeah, actually,
the original Faulconer score, the original censorship, the original voices. And by the way, we should also make clear, the season 3 was a milestone because it was the first time, and it wasn't right away, it was about a year later, that we had bilingual DVDs. Funimation released the Dragon Ball Z dub and sub on one DVD. First time ever. The quality was not that good. The editing and the authoring of the DVD was kind of terrible.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because we had official subtitled DBZ, and that was a big deal for us, dude.
Yeah, even before the Dragon Boxes. And I even heard Japanese fans imported.
That's right. US Japanese fans did not have DBZ on DVD. We got it before they did, and they had to import our shit.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, like I heard Japanese fans when they watched like the season 3 dub, they laughed at it.
I mean, can't blame them, really. Back then, it was almost like a Team 4-star thing, to be honest with you. Yeah. It was their first time, though, man. You got to let it go. But some people still bitch about it. But I see why, but it was so long ago. It's just fun looking back. It was exciting. It was exciting for us,
very
dude.
exciting.
It was. It was bad, but it was exciting, you know, and they got better as time went on.
Yeah.
So, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Check out Battle Geek. No, anytime. Check out Battle Geek Plus. I'll leave a link down below, and let us know in the comments if you're an older fan. What are your season 3? Even if you're not an older fan, but I want the older fans to really leave a comment if you remember when these episodes first aired. What are your memories of collecting the tapes from back then? Yes. It was harder, but there was a weird sort of nostalgia for those days, you know?
Yep, let us hear your thoughts.
Let us know. We'll talk to you soon.